Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up is the approval of the agenda.
I will move for the approval of the agenda for July 23, 2024.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. We have an agenda. Next is the consent agenda.
I'll move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Did you have something?
Yeah, I have a couple things. First, I'd like to ask that the ordinance for the emergency spending provision for the general manager be discussed at the next work session or one of the next few work sessions. I just believe that it needs to have some kind of a cap or a maximum on it. Secondly, I would like to readdress the issue of the mayor's conduct a couple of months back with his altercation with his neighbor. Since the last meeting ended so abruptly with public comment, no further comment, and a gavel, whenever since I've been on the council, there has always been an opportunity from anything else from the council before a gavel. I'd like to just point out that of the letters submitted in support of Mayor Salter, and I'm not talking about the two that were laying on the table when we got here, but the two that were listed in the agenda, neither one of them addressed the issue brought up at the previous council meeting about aggressive behavior, loss of temper, or acting out in violence. Your support of the mayor's activism and visibility, which is what he is after, being recognized and seeing how many times he can get his picture in the local paper or admirable for him. I can say that I'm very nervous about being in the same room with him, knowing that he can lose his temper at any moment. I'm not saying that the lady that he got into the altercation with is a model citizen. She's not. But that doesn't mean that violence is the answer to a drunken act. She obviously has some mental and substance abuse issues, which he knows, and a push or a punch in the back and a fist to the face are two completely different types of acts. If you have had Pardon me?
We're on the consent agenda right now. Can we vote on that, please?
Oh. Okay.
All those in favor of the consent agenda say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. We have a consent agenda. Now we'll go to messages from the mayor, council, and city manager. Start with the council. Tanya?
Sure, I wanted to
Can you
mention.
speak up, please? We
Oh,
can't hear.
okay.
We can hear you out here.
Okay, sorry.
Volume, please.
Is it on?
Speak
The
into your
system's
mic, Tanya.
on.
Speak into your mic.
It's to your right.
The mic to your mouth.
To your mic.
Okay, I apologize. I'm supposed to be talking to council. I would like to talk to you as well, but I'm having a discussion with council, so I'm trying to orient myself this way to speak into the mic. Is that better?
This way. Just
Yeah, it's much
Yeah.
better.
Okay.
Into the
Can
mic.
people hear?
Can you hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. So, I'd like to talk to you, but I can't face you, I'm sorry. So anyway, I wanted to mention that yesterday we had the first meeting of our senior advisory committee, which I've been in the process of setting up. We've got nearly a dozen people. Scott Brown was on last night. You can maybe say a few words as well. And we are looking at what we may want to spend our senior millage funding on. We may keep it where it's at right now, but we have nearly 700 senior citizens, including myself, in the city, and so we thought maybe it'd be a good idea to reach out to our senior citizens to ask what their interests are, their needs. And so we're going to be putting out a survey. That's their first order of business. Second, we will be looking at how to distribute that survey, get it out to folks. And then last of all, we're going to be reaching out to the various agencies that we have throughout the county to make sure that up here in the north part of the county that we are connected with these agencies to make sure that their services extend here. So I've been inviting people right and left, and so I would continue to invite people to participate. You don't have to be a senior. Maybe you have a senior you care about, or maybe you just care about the fact that you might be getting to be a senior one day, if you're lucky. And so that's all I wanted to say. I'm very pleased to be working with the group. Our next meeting is next Monday at 4:30 at City Hall.
Debbie?
Could you hear? Okay. All right, so with the packet and the meeting minutes from last meeting, I noticed that my comments at the July 9th, 2024 Whitehall City Council meeting regarding Mr. Salter's altercation with his neighbor and my call for his resignation were not specifically included in the meeting minutes, so I am submitting them in this letter with the request that it be included in the meeting minutes for tonight. And I will read it again. I want to address a matter that should have been addressed long before now. Many of us have been witness to the mayor's aggressive manner and easily provoked temper during council meetings. In May, he was involved in an incident where he admittedly punched a woman in the face and such that she fell to the ground. This was in retaliation for allegedly being punched by her in his back, which she denies doing. This display of complete lack of self-control, ending in violence, is simply unacceptable from a public official. It not only reflects poorly on him as an individual, but is damaging to our city, our council, and our community. This show of angry aggression sends a very dangerous message that such behavior is permissible when it is not. As representatives of this council and voices for our community, we have to address the issue. I want the mayor to take responsibility for this action. Therefore, in what I believe to be in the best interest of our community, I call for Mr. Salter to resign from her position as mayor from the council and from any board on which he sits. Several have expressed their support and comments in letters, and I don't doubt their sincerity and their applause for his behavior outside of these incidences. All those accolades, however, in my opinion, and from those I'm hearing from, do not address this serious issue or excuse the violent behavior. I continue to receive input from concerned citizens. Several have asked me why I'm not doing more. But to my knowledge, the only thing more we as council can do to address the situation is to censure Mr. Salter and call for his resignation. So, to formally address this situation, I would like to make a motion that the mayor be censured for conduct that's damaging to the city council and ask that city council call for his resignation. So, Will, I need your advice on how to pursue that.
You can make a motion and it can be seconded and
I think I did.
considered.
I
Yeah,
think I
you
just
made a
did.
motion.
Okay. So,
I would second.
is it, does it need to go, since the subject is the chair, does it need to go to,
I mean, it needs to be called and
it should go to the vice chair who's not here, then to the secretary, which would be the clerk? Is that correct?
that, yeah, that can be done.
Okay. Is there,
There was
Sorry.
a second.
Yeah.
Is that a roll call or just votes?
I think that would be a roll call.
Well, is there discussion? We have a motion on the floor, right?
Yeah.
There's a motion.
Okay, the motion was seconded, and so it's on the floor for discussion, right?
correct.
Right.
Okay. What?
So,
I have a statement as well, unless you want to go ahead, Tom?
The only thing I was going to say is that it might make sense to table this until all the comments have been done.
Thank you.
I wouldn't mind.
Because
Yeah. We have a motion on the table and it was seconded. I wouldn't, I mean, I guess we could table it if, in respect that there are people who are, you know, I would, I don't know, do you want to amend your second or your regular, or how do you want to do that?
What's the,
You can do it, I mean, you can just table it and address it later in the meeting. Bring it up later in the meeting.
Does that work for
you?
yeah, I think so.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. All right, so do I need to do that?
Somebody does. There needs to be a motion and a support to table, and when you table it, it has to be it's supposed to be brought off the table and acted on within the same meeting.
Okay, so I will make a motion to table the vote on this until after we hear some more input. Is that
Second.
fine?
You talking input from us or input from public?
Both, I think, right? Are you saying both? Or?
That's what all these people are here for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it after all the people have talked.
Is that,
Yeah.
okay?
Do we vote
No, that can
on
just be
that
voted on.
then?
That doesn't-
On the table?
The table has to be voted on?
Yeah, yes, vote on it, but it doesn't have to be a roll call.
All in favor? Of tabling the.
tabling. Aye.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
No?
All right. So are you done,
I'm done, thank
Okay.
you.
Tom?
I have three things. First one being Walk the Beat was fantastic. And there were lots of people that worked very hard on that, but I want to call out Kevin Goff in particular for his leadership and an amazing amount of work that he put into that. That was a tremendous event for the community. So number two is at the last council meeting, we talked about several storm and disaster-related topics, but I left here confused about several things. So I met with Renee Gavin, who is the Director of Muskegon County Emergency Services, and I wanted to pass on several bits of information that I learned from her, and I'm just passing on input from her, not that I necessarily agree with it, all of it. But we talked a lot about sirens, and she said there are only 2 sirens left in the whole county, and one of those is broken. I know that was an issue, especially for Tanya. Sirens are definitely going away, she said. They are generally only protect people who are outside. People who are inside usually don't hear the sirens because so often the televisions are on, music playing, and the houses are more soundproof now than they were in the past. Also in small towns like ours, there may not be someone available 24 hours a day to turn the siren on. And even if there is someone to do that, they might not get the alarm quick enough to set the siren off, is what she said. And Renee knows Tanya, and Tanya reported that, reported that in 1998, you heard the siren at your house
Yes, I
in
did.
the middle of the night.
In the
Did she-
morning,
in the
early
morning?
morning. And I went
Okay.
down to my basement, so
Right.
I surely appreciated it.
Yeah. But Renee said that's because you're so close to the siren. I don't know. Anyway, everyone should be using their cell phones, is what she said, for emergency notices. You should not turn your cell phone off at night, which people reported doing last week. And you need to sign up for cell phone alerts. Concerning disaster assistance, I think somebody asked whether we couldn't get federal disaster relief. Renee said that you never go right to the federal government. First you go to the county government. And I guess that I don't know what happened there if we did, or they just don't have any money available. Then you go to the state and the federal. But she said there, the state of Michigan's emergency disaster fund is empty, and it has been for a couple of years. And it was apparently not a big enough deal to go to for the federal to get involved. She said that the best bet for this instance that just passed is that we should contact our legislators who represent this district. And I don't know if anybody has done that. Concerning emergency plans, we are covered by the county emergency plan. Community emergency plan is not legally required unless the community population is over 10,000. We definitely should have an emergency plan on file with them, she said, but we have not submitted one. They do have guides available to help create a community emergency plan. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3 is for the mayor. Mr. Mayor, your plan to just remain silent and hope that your incident of violence would just go away is not working. It was reported again last week in another local newspaper, the White Lake Mirror. And while I was walking at Walk the Beat on Saturday, while I was working at Walk the Beat, 4 different people asked me about you punching your neighbor lady, and what am I supposed to say? I don't really know what to say to that. You portray yourself as an innocent victim who had to hit Mrs. Josephson in self-defense. But your feud with this woman is well known, has apparently been going on for a long time. This probably could have been stopped before it turned violent because we have a number of tools available for us to prevent violence. A good fence would help to keep the neighbor out of your yard. Having a camera or 2 might make a difference. You can buy pepper spray, and 1 shot of pepper spray would probably prevent her from trespassing anymore. And probably the best option is a restraining order, so that she could be arrested anytime she steps into your yard. But you chose to let the squabble continue until it became violent. At our past meeting, the past council meeting, there was a Mr. Cooper who reported that he talked with you, and you told him that you would hit her again. You know, so what the heck is going on? If council does nothing towards stopping this kind of behavior, is it possible that it could lead to a very expensive lawsuit for the city? I don't know. So far, you've just sat there and not responded. So at this point, I feel like I need to join a number of city residents and at least 1 other council member and ask for your resignation. And I feel like when we are talking about subjects of this magnitude of importance, that our comments, it would be good to get the substance of our comments and report that in the next meeting minutes, and I'm done.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
I was just talking to Brooke about that. If anybody's reading written statements, if you can give them to us, we'll make sure they're part of the packet and in the official record. We have never done any type of verbatim minutes. Primarily, we focus on decisions that are made. But we did notice that, Ms. Hildebrand, that there was an omission on at least acknowledgement that you made a statement. So if you've got written statements that you're reading, if we can have those so that Brooke can breathe a little easier than trying to follow word for word, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Well, it's, in the there are notes pertaining to the audience participation, the audience comments that kind of catch the substance of what they're saying. And
Yep.
that's kind of what I'm saying.
And we would do that, but if you would be acceptable to give us your written statements, we'll make sure that that's part of the record. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Scott?
I'll just pick up where I left off at from before. If you've had a problem with this neighbor for years, you could always put up a fence to alleviate the problem. Or as our city manager and chief of police have told other residents of our city very unprofessionally, if you don't like it, you can always move. Also, in defense of myself and other council members who didn't show up to ask how things were going after the storm in the more devastated areas where only professionals and emergency personnel associated with the cleanup and the residents that lived there were allowed in, we were all just doing as we were instructed and staying out of the area where Mr. Salter had no business being in the first place. So at this point, in the best interest of our city, I again ask for the mayor to resign.
That's all I have. Steve?
I would like to compliment the city on the response to this storm. Department of Public Works did an awesome job, are still doing an awesome job. They've been down my street 3 times picking up brush, and although there's still more, I'm not sure exactly. Maybe Scott can let us know exactly how long we're going to be allowed to stick brush out there and have it picked up. This is
26.
26, is that correct?
That is
Okay.
correct.
Because that has been just a lifesaver to have that brush picked up. It's been so nice, and they're doing a really great job. And also, as far as city spending on this, I think that this is the type of thing that we have this reserve for. And if we gotta spend whatever we gotta spend to get city streets and do whatever we gotta do to have our utilities back online and all that kind of stuff, then I think that's what we gotta do. And I just appreciate what the city has done so far. I think they're doing a great job. Thank you. That's it.
City manager.
I have nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Okay. And we'll move on to public comment. Please step up to the podium, keep your name.
I guess I'll get up here first before all the other stuff happens. I want to talk about Martin Enos, 1421 Warner Street. The Preen and Newhoff guys parked in front of my house the other day, and he was yakking at me, and I said, "Tell me what's got left to do on the street." And he told me that they're just going to mill the street. And he says, "I don't agree with that. It needs a full rebuild, but all we're going to do is mill it because not enough money." I kind of find that as inexcusable, especially when we just spent $300 grand to buy Big John's, $300 grand to build a pocket park. That could have been put into that street, because that's a north-south truck route. It's not going to last with just a mill. And that's all I got to say.
Is that correct?
That is not correct. It's a complete rebuild. There are some areas that are gonna be milled, like primarily in front of the post office, but, I mean, Warner Street, there is no road. It's gonna be a complete rebuild.
Okay. I guess the Newhoff guy didn't know what he was talking about.
Hi, my name is, is this on? Hi, my name is Heather Dean, and I live at 9480 US 31 Montague. I am here to speak on Mayor Steve Salter's behalf. I did have a prepared statement, but in lieu of the comments that were said tonight, I am just going to go off the cuff and speak from my heart. I find it absolutely egregious, number one, that you would discuss an altercation and somebody who was victimized, they had no charges brought against them. That was the decision, not of the city council, not of the city members, nothing. That was an investigation that took place, and they decided that they were not going to charge this man. They decided that he was the victim of this assault. And so I find it absolutely egregious that you council members who have called upon for his resignation are now deciding that you have the authority to do that you have the authority to usurp and circumvent the lawful investigation. And the other comment that I would just like to say, because I have known the Salters for over 30 years, and I also I have a degree in chaplaincy, and I also facilitate ethics, and that's why this is highly egregious. This is highly egregious. And the other comment that I'm going to say is this. I find it horribly offensive that you would suggest a victim of a crime could mitigate that crime somehow, and if they were not mitigating it, that somehow that they are at fault. That would be like suggesting a rape victim shouldn't have worn the short skirt. She should not have, that would, excuse me, that is like suggesting that a rape victim should not have looked at her perpetrator. She should not have worn the short skirt. When you suggest that this man coulda, shoulda, woulda done all of these things, that's absolutely ridiculous. He is a victim, and all that is happening now is that he's being re-victimized. Do you think everybody wants to take their time out of their busy schedules? I guarantee you have not seen me before. No, we do not. But this needs to stop. And so the last thing I will say is, it is my request as a local resident that this man be left alone to go about his business, which it is the people's business, for his heart and his community and the will of the voters who duly elected him to do his job.
My name is Sandra Dial, and I'd like to address the council. I had a prepared speech to make, but listening to the council just bothered me a lot, because you saying that you're now afraid of the mayor, you should be more afraid of me, because that man is not violent. I am way more violent than he is. That is just ludicrous. I think you guys are trying to railroad him, is what it feels to me. And as she said, that is not the behavior that I expect out of a council. And I'm moving to this city, I've bought land, and that bothers the heck out of me.
Thank you.
Hello, Kim Hardy, 1391 G Street. As far as I know, any business has a zero tolerance for any kind of behavior or violence. I don't see why our mayor shouldn't have that also. Even in school, kids are not allowed to defend themselves. They're told to walk away. So this is not like raping him. No. And we do know that violence escalates. I agree and ask for your resignation. This is what a friend gave me that they got. Your picture's on the front page. This is what our neighboring communities know about us. And I think that's a shame or egregious.
David Hostick, I live in Montague on Ferry Street. Longtime small business family from the area. I agree that any conduct of this nature from a small business owner or whatever, where they would have railroaded right out of town. In my opinion, is any council members that sit up here, yes, I'm looking at you, Steve, that don't vehemently come out against the violent behaviors of the mayor are promoting violence as a way to solve our neighborhood disputes. So, by the way, what do you mean you were quoted as saying, we live in a non-binary world? What's that supposed to mean? Do you have any response to that? What is that supposed to mean? I think you should resign. I don't think you should have been reelected in the first place, but I know you a little better than most of these people do.
Order.
Tom Ullman, 8725 Mead Street, Montague. Change the subject just a little bit. The White Lake Area Fire Committee would like to thank you for your support for this year's fireworks. All the bills were paid and we still have a little bit of money still left in there. You'll be receiving a letter in the next week from me, and the letter will be talking about how the Rotary ran the fireworks for several years and then they decided not to. And for the last 3 years, 3 to 5 of us have decided to keep the fireworks going, and we need your help. The site that we've been using is the Montague boat ramp, and because of the federal laws or state laws, the boat ramp has to be closed down through there. We're looking at other sites. We're also looking at other ideas. Should it be drones instead of fireworks? Should it be a light show? And again, we need your help. We need new members on the committee. We need some new ideas. We have already in the process of signing for 2025. And because 2026 is going to be a big year, 250 years, July 3rd. Again, if you have any ideas, we would accept those. If you'd like to be on the committee, we would like you. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. Why is the boat ramp going to be shut down? Or what's that about? I don't follow that.
The boat ramp for the last 2 years when they put they shoot from a corner, but you gotta have 400 feet clearance. And that almost goes clear over to some of the area by the band shell.
Okay.
And so we've been looking at other areas, but we haven't found any.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll switch the subject back. Ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, hi, my name is Kyle Burnett. I married into the community some years ago. I'm a homeowner in Whitehall, and I'm an investor in the greater White Lake area. So thank you for taking the time to hear me out today. I, like a lot of our citizens, stand here deeply concerned about the ongoing events involving our mayor, Mr. Steve Salter, and his neighbor. As I understand the documented facts of the case, for nearly 20 years, and I'd like to underscore 20 years, the Salters family, and I think this is putting it mildly, has had issues with a very unstable neighbor. Based on the years that I've spent with the Salters family and the evidence that I've seen has been shared with me, which is legal filings, judge-ordered mediation, arrest records, witness testimony, the list goes on. I'm of the opinion that this long-running issue originates from and is solely perpetuated from the other side of the fence, not from Mr. Salters. I believe that the Salters family has a long documented track record, in fact, of their efforts to try to help this troubled neighbor. This is adding up to decades of restraint on their end to maintain peace and civility. So despite their best efforts to work with the neighbor, law enforcement, the courts, social services, and the neighbor's friends and family, nothing has helped. Not surprisingly, the situation escalated to exactly where you guys know this was, which is Mr. Salters was attacked by his neighbor while doing nothing other than mowing his lawn, and in an act of self-defense, he turned and struck his neighbor, who fled back to his house. As you guys are already aware, Mr. Salters did what any responsible citizen would do and would call the police. The law, which is absolutely no stranger to the attacker's address, took its course based off, as already stated, the findings. She was arrested, she was charged.
Yeah.
The question that I have for you and those condemning Mr. Salters of this incident is, are you aware of this documented history of harassment that has been perpetuated against the Salters family? What troubles me deeply is that some of the community on this council are either lacking this information in context or have chosen to distort the incident as, quote, an unhinged man hitting a helpless elderly woman. From the facts presented in front to me and in front to you by other testimony and evidence that's readily available to you, this narrative is factually inaccurate and it's grossly unfair to both parties. It's removing agency and consequence from the attacker while further victimizing Mr. Salter and his family. It's disheartening to see the acts that are being played out here in front of the council that are either based on being ill-informed or they're just purely being perpetrated in bad faith, seizing the moment to engage in what is clearly political opportunism. It's politically driven, trying to discredit Mr. Salters. Mr. Salters has done nothing other than steadfastly serve this community with integrity and dedication. And frankly, this is a bit of distasteful and transparent victim blaming that undermines Mr. Salters' long documented history of peacefully navigating this conflict with his neighbor, servicing our community at large. And what's worse, if you'd like to talk about the precedent that it sets, this is telling people that our community leadership thinks that it's okay to tolerate harassment and abuse and vilify those who stand up against it. You must remember that your elected responsibility to ensure the safety and well-being of all citizens, ignoring and downplaying a violent attack on your mayor, culminating years of physical abuse, culminating attack on your mayor, and condemning him for his legally and morally justified self-defense of him and his family is willful failure of both diligence and justice. To put a finer point on it, it doesn't help either citizen, and it's a betrayal of the very principles that you were sworn to uphold. I urge you to do the right thing, and that is condemn the aggressor and support the victim, Mr. Salter. Stand up for the man who's shown unwavering, decades-long commitment of selfless service to our community and all of the citizens, including his neighbor. Thank you for your time. If it's okay, I have two other letters that people asked me to read from them. They're definitely more brief.
Go ahead.
This is from Kathleen Quinn.
I thought you got 3 minutes.
Who wants the mic?
You only get 3 minutes.
3 minutes for each letter.
Criticize.
For each letter.
The council members read letters last time for somebody who wasn't here. Why can't we?
You can. You can read a letter.
Okay.
Thank you. Use the microphone.
Yeah, on the side there, I can see the green light. My side, there should be a button right about.
And we're red, we're on. Okay, thank you. These will be brief. Thank you for your patience. This is from Kathleen Quinn, Whitehall resident. She says, I'm writing on behalf of Mr. Stephen Salter. My family has known Steve for many years. I know him to be an honest person. It's fine, I'll just speak louder. I know him to be an honest person, and I'm in total support of the community. That does not mean I always agree with all of his decision, but isn't that what government is all about? The personal situation is totally the police department matter and nothing else. We are not the police, and we should be totally leaving this in their hands. Personally,
Mic isn't working.
Hold on, Kyle. He's getting, get that straight.
how about now? Okay, we're back on.
Thank you.
Pick up right where I left off in the interest of time. Personally, I could not have endured the matters that have come up many, many times before involving this person. While I do not condone the violence, I also believe that we are at a breaking point and knee-jerk reactions are what's following. I totally believe that this is what this was. That's Ms. Kathleen Quinn. And the last one, very brief, and I'll get out of your hair. Sorry, this keeps cutting out. To the Town Council of Whitehall, this is from Charles Yeoman, 211 South Hanson Street. Oof. I live across the alley from Amy Josephine. This woman is a drunkard and an example. Yeah, I think I might have to. Batteries might be dying out. Well, I'll just speak loud. So I live across the alley from Miss Josephine. This woman is a drunkard and an example of what years of alcohol can do a person's mind. I've heard her ranting and using racial slurs. She slams her back door so hard I expect it to come off its hinges. She slapped a member of our get-together we were having and knocked his glasses off. She uses filthy language around children and has been out of jail many times. She's no pillar of our town and would not, it's not a citizen you should be using as an example. That's from Charles Yeoman. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I will. I'll try. I talk loud, so try to. Okay. I actually have two letters as well. I have a letter from my dad that I'm going to read first, and then I have my own statements. So this is from my dad, Rick Dial. I, or he, I have known both Steve and Leslie for 50 plus years. The last 5 years or more, he and Leslie have described ongoing issues with the female neighbor to the north. Leslie has told of verbal abuse to her in particular. Steve and Leslie have reported these to the Whitehall police with no resolution. A few months ago, things escalated to an assault by this woman. Undoubtedly, there is a police report on file, which I'm sure you will know.
Get louder.
Okay. Now show me. So there have been calls for Steve to resign. Was Steve excessive in his response to the alleged assault? If so, he should have been charged.
Right.
He has not been. Either Whitehall police have been negligent, or more likely, or more importantly, his actions were justifiable. Is she a danger to herself or others? Has there been assistance in this regard to her? Has there been any urgent demands for such assistance? Have we heard anything? Are there firearms in the neighbor's home? Where does this escalate to? Political bickering should take a back seat to this woman's mental health and the public safety. And that's from my dad, Rick Dial. Do you guys want copies of this? All right, so I have my own statement as well. So hello, council members. My name is Catherine Burnett. My husband Kyle just spoke. I am a homeowner of Whitehall, and I'm here to speak on behalf of our mayor. I've seen Steve attempted to be painted as a violent person, and I'm absolutely dismayed to see this. I have a long-time relationship with Steve, and I can personally attest that nothing could be further from the truth here. Steve worked with my dad at Helmet for years, and I would often be known to, as an avoidance of the school bus, walk from high school over to the plant they shared on Benson and Warner to meet my dad. I'm sure it's changed now, but there was a guard check at the front of the building, and oftentimes that post was empty. Steve would see me waiting from his post just up the hall, come and let me in and walk me to the lunchroom where I'd wait for my dad to get off work. He would often buy me a pop and let my dad know that I was there. That is the Steve that I know from my youth. The Steve I know from my adulthood is a wildly compassionate man who is often the first person to greet you when seen in public. Someone who will sit and discuss blues and books. A peaceful, kind-hearted man who will introduce you to new friends and bring together people from all walks of life. A man who is consistently working for the betterment of this community day in and day out. Whether it be from forging relationships between Whitehall and other surrounding communities or from consistent bolstering of those community activities. I have driven through town on 2 separate occasions this summer and seen him bent over in front of Pitkins in the pub on his hands and knees pulling weeds from planters. No cameras around, just doing it for the county. Right? Last week he was cleaning the curb on Colby Street, broom in hand. And when I want to know what's going on in Whitehall, or even Montague for that matter, be it an event, a street closure, updates on the storm damage, closure of the bike path, his Facebook page is the first place I visit. In fact, out of curiosity, I scrolled his Facebook page, and since June 1st alone, he has posted or shared 196 individual posts about Whitehall, highlighting Whitehall.
Yes.
These are either from local businesses or from the City of Whitehall departments, the Police Department, Arts Council, the Visitor Bureau, info about Feet on the Street and Walk the Beat updates. We get shares of the food specials from local restaurants like the Gnarly Heifer, Mylands, Pub 111, summer hours for places like Peekadills, Dairy Treat. We get updates when Pitkins or the Police Department update their profile picture, for heaven's sakes. Additionally, he highlights posts from the surrounding communities. Kitchen updates from Busy Bee, artists playing at the Montague Bandshell, and when North Grove had their fire, I learned about it first from Steve. And he had shared the subsequent updates about their progress and rebuild. I actually wanted to tally the entire amount of posts that he has shared since the beginning of the year, but I legitimately got dizzy while scrolling. So, what I see is a man who shows up every day for this community, and what I want to know is, where are the rest of you? What are you doing daily to support us? Because what appears to be happening is that a few of you are latching onto and sensationalizing a story of a man dealing with years of verbal and emotional abuse for your own personal gain, and that's reprehensible. There's documented evidence of years of pathological abuse from that woman to Steve and his family. I have and can submit screenshots from the Whitehall police blotter where they were called to the block of his street on 18 different occasions in the last year. Now, I'm certainly not happy that things have escalated, but in the end, I side with law enforcement on this, who made an arrest, and that person was not Mr. Salter.
Right.
My final question is just this. What are those of you who are asking for his resignation doing? Because what I see is a man dedicated to the community, out here helping every day, and there's not a peep from the rest of you, except to glom onto a story to justify your personal dislike of a man, from what I see, who actually gives a damn about this place.
Right.
Heather O'Connell, 6569 Zeller Road. I am here again, as I was last time, to speak up in support of Steve Salter. One of my questions after the conversation that has been had today is, we're discussing appropriateness in our workplace here at the City Council. The amount of money that we are wasting on this right now, the amount of time that you're asking of our City Council and the people that we pay for this is such a waste, where we could be working on the other things, working on our emergency services and things that have to get done here. We've had this investigation, the police have done their job, we need to let them continue to do the job. If we have issue here, my issue is with Muskegon County. How many times can this woman get arrested for the same thing, the same abuse over and over, and get cut every time, get released? Nothing is done. If we want to take blame up and have issue with some sort of what's going on, why are we not going back to the source of why is she getting let out? Why is she not in rehab? Why is she not getting the resources she needs? Why is it Steve's job as her neighbor to get that? we're being angry at the wrong system that has failed her. It isn't here. The system is over there. With that being said, I was given a couple letters that I would like to read on their behalf. First off is from Maggie and Gregory Maxey at 1011 South Coast Circle, Whitehall, Michigan. The letter states, we know of Mr. Steve Salter before we moved to Whitehall due to his work with the Killer Blues Project. Mr. Salter raises money to put headstones on our departed blues and jazz musicians who pass without a grave marker. He is known throughout the blues and jazz community for his charitable works. We were pleased to learn Steve Salter was the first elected mayor of Whitehall. He welcomed us to the city and has always been a great advocate for this city. Mayor Salter is a great promoter of local businesses in both Whitehall and Montague. Mayor Salter is easy to find as he is always trying to improve the city by picking up trash, watering petunias, sweeping up the splash pad, and checking up on city projects. His mission is to promote to the city of Whitehall, making it an attractive place to live and work. The recent closure of North Mears on Monday evening has been a great success for both the young and old to gather and enjoy the North Mears common area. The current situation for which you council members considering the removal of Mayor Salter, a duly elected official, is premature. The woman involved in the assault of Mayor Salter has an extensive rap sheet, 27 pages, which we handed out. Excuse me. The police responded to the recent incident, and their evaluation was to arrest Ms. Josephson. The Salters have had the misfortune of living next to this individual for many years. She is not only an alcoholic, but a repeat offender. The level of harassment that they have had to endure living next door to this individual is unimaginable. In closing, I hope that this will encourage you to look beyond this one unfortunate incident and look at all of the good Mayor Salter brings to this city. His constituents know Mayor Salter well and encourage the council to reconsider any motion to remove him. And my last letter is from Regan Osborne, 12 years old. She writes, and I am reading this as written, so bear with it. Mayor Steve is the most kind-hearted old man I know. He has spread so much goodness to Whitehall, and his actions have made this a better community. There is no doubt in my mind that he will continue to go the extra mile to clean the goose poop off the splash pad, help out with petunia patrol, and make the whole room light up with a smile as he walks. Whitehall needs out Steve. If you unelected him, a piece will be plucked out of the Jenga tower, and like it or not, this town will crumble. Mr. Salter gives life to the saying, let's work together. So as this letter is being written, I'm hoping that you can all realize the love and effort our mayor gives to this community. Please give your love and effort not only to the community, but to Mayor Steve. Regan Osborne, 12 years. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carol Schramm. I'm a homeowner here in Whitehall. I have a formal letter, but I'll just go off the cuff. I've known Steve and Leslie for many, many years, as well as knowing Amy Josephson and her partner Pat for many years. I think that we're lucky to have Steve's service in this community. He really cares about the community, and it's his number one priority. I feel really sorry for Amy. I knew her in her younger days. She was popular and pretty and normal. She wasn't born with any intellectual disabilities, but her alcohol use, overuse, has caused her to make bad decisions, lose her judgment. She gets violent when she's drinking. I've firsthand witnessed violent episodes with people in the neighborhood. I do live in the neighborhood. Her family with her partner. It's not just Steve. It's a lot of people involved. And I would like to just ask how many people here think that they would not do anything to defend themselves if they were physically attacked by someone. I don't blame Steve for what happened. I feel sorry for Amy. She needs help, and the system is failing her. She really needs, I used to work with community mental health. She needs to be mandated for mental health treatment and medication. There is medication to keep her off alcohol. I think that would really help, but nobody's doing anything for her. Unfortunately, Steve and Les have their nice little house there, and they've had to put up with it for a long time. And it came to a boiling point with Steve, but it's also come to a boiling point with a lot of other people surrounding Amy. So it's a bad situation, but I don't think Steve should be held at fault for this. It's not his fault, and we are lucky to have him in our service, and I'm in support of keeping Steve in his position. Thank you.
David Hostek again. I think I have maybe a minute and a half of unused time I'd like to reclaim from my previous comments. You know, we asked for a formal statement from the city, from Salter and from the city manager, as well as I believe from law enforcement here a while back, and we have got zero, nothing. There's been completely dead silence on the whole entire matter. And the way that the city has, or especially Mr. Salter has presented this to the community, or not presented it to the community, is exactly what has raised such feelings that there's been a big cover-up going on. In fact, what I'm told is the initial police report was heavily redacted, and then later, once it was later unredacted, it appeared that it had been rewritten. So think of it however you want, but I think that there's been a very bad mismanagement of the entire situation, and if there had been extenuating circumstances that justify this man's behavior, which I don't think there's any justification for what he did, then why are we having to wait weeks and weeks for it and find out through public comment at the council meetings? Why is that? Cover up. Why is that? Why?
Why are you speaking for a second time?
I had unused time. Thank you.
Hi, Crew McPherson. I'm actually a newer, probably only lived in this area for about 6 years. But I have to say, this gentleman here, that we're bringing up things that are hearsay that you've heard, other things. I personally have watched Salter in a situation where a gentleman sat down and was very aggressive towards him about when I introduced him as, hey, this is our mayor, you can talk with him. Well, what party are you from? Steve says, I'm not from a party, I'm a mayor elected by the people. If you have something to talk to us about our city, I'm willing to talk to you. And the gentleman wouldn't let it go. Salter stood his ground, was very calm about it, and really, really showed me what a great gentleman he has. Now, one other point that was said today, Mr. Brown saying that he has no business walking in an area that's just been under the damages like that was done. What is his job? And what is your job then? To not know what's going on in your city as a council member and not being over there to talk to the people in their city? That is your job. And I would expect you guys all to maybe even go together in those areas and make a special time to go down there and check it out when it's just happened. And that's all I have to say. Have a great day.
Laura Abramson, I'm a resident of Whitehall, and as other people have said, it's been established that Steve and Leslie Salter have had an issue with this neighbor for quite some time, since long before he became mayor. So we don't have a mayor problem here. We have a resident problem. We have a problem of a resident being abused by their neighbor, and it's targeted serial harassment, and it's a criminal justice issue. If you've ever been the target of serial harasser and abuser, especially one with substance abuse issues, you understand that eventually you're likely to be in a position in which you're going to have to defend yourself physically. As a survivor of this type of abuse myself, I was able to divorce my abuser and move a few hundred miles away. The Salters don't have that luxury. When the abuser is your neighbor, who is in close proximity to you, you have to rely on law enforcement to handle the situation. I'm disgusted that as Steve and Leslie Salter have had to navigate dealing with this abusive neighbor for years, members of Whitehall City Council have used this as an opportunity to settle personal scores and petty political differences by asking for his resignation. To be clear, Steve and Leslie did not invite this person into their lives. Council members need to know this is not your job. Stay in your lane. This is a legal community criminal justice police matter. I would be saying the same thing if it was anybody else as mayor. Please stop exacerbating this abusive situation. Most importantly, the mayor is not in an appointed position anymore, but he is an elected official. There's a process for the removal of an elected official if a situation should warrant it. That's why we have recalls. It is not at the discretion of this board. You do not have the authority to undermine the will of the voters of Whitehall. In short, stay in your lane, do your job. This is not part of your job. Thank you.
Hi, Eric Harsh, 1511 Moody Street in Whitehall. I'd like to reflect on a couple of things. There's, of course, a lot of things I'd like to say, but Scott, I mentioned that I saw Steve on his bike in my neighborhood. Do you know when I saw him there? Before the police were blockading. I was talking to him when he was talking to Chief to get that set up. So he was out within the legal rights, looking at his community and making sure people were okay. He asked me personally, as I'm walking out of my house, shell-shocked, do you need anything? Where were you? Where were you? Don't worry, he was on his bike. I'm not going to speak about Steve because he knows how I feel about him. He's a great man. Everybody knows he's a great man. He does his job well. If we could stop having community meetings like this, maybe we'd stop taking pictures for the paper.
I've got several letters. Citizens of Whitehall, council members, thank you for your time today. The first letter is from Mike Byam.
Pardon me. We need your name and address, please.
Pardon me, Mark Vandeveld.
I've got a request. I want to make sure everybody has their 3 minutes. We have a lot of people, but if there are letters, is it okay if you just say pro or not pro, just to?
No, I don't think so.
I mean,
I think it was fine for council. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know.
Excuse me, I wasn't done. What I'm trying to say is that I want to make sure people in the audience have appropriate time, and if you're going to bring several letters, I don't know, we've done that in the past. I didn't necessarily support having folks read letters during their message, so I didn't agree with that either. So it's just sometimes it's helpful, and we've done that in the past where if you've got 3 letters and people are still sitting there, that you just say this.
We're fine, 3 people.
All right, stop. Can you?
Yeah, I had the floor.
No, you don't have the floor.
Yes, I did.
You don't have the floor. This is public comment. We're going to allow people to read letters.
Okay, but then hopefully we will keep to the 3 minutes like we usually do.
We are going to allow people to read letters.
Thank you. I did think I had the floor. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you very much for your time. Again, my name is Mark Vandeveld. The first letter I have here is from Mike Byam. I'm writing today in support of Mayor Steve Salter. Our community is fortunate to have numerous active and engaged leaders like Steve Salter. This contributes to what makes Whitehall such a terrific place. However, Steve's nonstop efforts to engage with the people and places of Whitehall is superhuman. Everywhere you turn, he is visible in sharing these interactions with the broader community. He goes above and beyond. Steve's hands-on approach has added to Whitehall's positive momentum and elevated the pride many have in this great city. Whitehall is fortunate to have a leader like Steve as our mayor. Sincerely, Mike Byam. This one's from Dana Parker. Dear Whitehall City Council, it has recently been brought to the attention of our beautiful White Lake community that the fairly elected mayor of Whitehall is being asked to resign. As a member of this community, I would like to offer up my thoughts on this.
I believe that Steve is a very humble public service and shows his love for this community daily, not just at election time. I think that a person's true personality comes out when people are not watching. You can spot him pulling out weeds, watering flowers, riding his bike to check on various projects in his country, and runs an amazing nonprofit, but you all know this. What you don't know is he is part of my and many others' chosen family. I've seen how he cares for his family, how he loves animals, how he takes care of all of us in this community, brings a sparkle to his eyes. It's evident he is a passionate person. He unfortunately has been dealing with a dark presence in his life that has been forced upon him that he has no control over. Every person has a right to defend themselves, and in this, he has been proven to do absolutely nothing wrong. I believe this matter should be put to rest tonight so that a great leader and friend can continue to do what he does best, and that is to take care of our community. I believe this country has enough resentment in it right now, but laying this to rest will allow us to keep some of it out of our paradise. Sincerely, Dana Parker. This one is from Richard Shields. Dear members of the City Council, my wife and I have owned a home at East Hanson Street and have spent significant time in Whitehall over the past 7 years. Our residence is near the homes of Amy Josephson and Steve and Leslie Salter on Livingston Street. I have recently learned that 3 City Council members recently read letters accusing Mayor Salter of inappropriate behavior during an incident involving Amy Josephson in an effort to force him to resign from his office as mayor of Whitehall. After speaking with Steve and Leslie about the incident, I discovered a public social media post by another City Council member pointing at the mayor's disgraceful behavior, inviting comments that would help get the word out about the despicable act by an elected official. That's all in quotes. Please allow me to share 3 brief observations and my own conclusions in support of Mayor Salter. 1. On June 27, 2024, WZZM13.com reported that Amy Josephson was facing charges by Muskegon County Prosecutor's Office for allegedly punching Mayor Salter. Steve Salter will not be facing any charges for acting in self-defense, according to the prosecutor's office. Number 2, during the last 7 years, we have personally witnessed aggressive and inappropriate behaviors exhibited by Ms. Josephson towards the Salters and the public, presumably while intoxicated. This includes screaming at the Salters from her yard and at the intersection of Livingston and Hanson Streets, placing large rocks in the middle of Hanson Street, presumably in an effort to slow down traffic, and other behaviors such as yelling and screaming between Miss Josephson and her domestic partners during all hours of the day. These behaviors have regularly disturbed the peace in the neighborhood. During our time in Whitehall, we have witnessed nothing but welcome, kindness, hospitality by the Salters as neighbors and friends. We see them present at local events, and they regularly volunteer in activities to improve our community. I am also aware of a long history of verbal abuse behavior exhibited by Amy Josephson toward the Salters that have been met with nothing but restraint and patience. In conclusion, I see this attempt to attack Mayor Steve Salter's reputation as petty and unfounded, both from a legal and a general conduct point of view. I would ask how many of you might have behaved while minding, I would ask how any of you might have behaved while minding your own business on your own personal property. While striking anyone may not be the best desired result, I maintain that any reasonable person might react similarly when being struck from behind by surprise, whether it be inflicted by a hostile neighbor or a stranger. I believe that the 3 council members have better things to accomplish than to single out the mayor over this incident. The next one is from Dave Osborne. Dear City Council members, The purpose of this letter is to document my unwavering support for City Mayor Steve Salter. In my opinion, Steve gives 100% of his support to the city as is shown by his actions. He has recommended, supported, and still volunteers for numerous projects within the city. One of my favorite projects that Steve suggested and helped implement is the splash pad for the local children. Steve continues to volunteer to clean the splash pad daily. I know this for a fact as I have assisted with this on occasion. Steve and Leslie also volunteer for the Petunia Patrol, watering the plants in the city during the summer. It has come to my attention that there are a couple of city council members that are attempting to remove Steve as mayor because they say he has violent tendencies. Anyone that knows the history of what Steve and Leslie have endured with a neighbor that is mentally unstable knows what they have dealt with. These people that are calling for Steve to resign should read the police logs regarding this person. That's where you'll find the truth. After several years of harassment by this individual, Steve was assaulted in his own yard by this person, and he defended himself. Furthermore, Steve was not charged with anything. As I understand it, the neighbor was arrested for trespassing and assault and taken to jail. What would you have done in this situation? Maybe you should live next door to this person for several years and see how that works for you. What I find interesting is that the two members calling for Steve's resignation have run against Steve for the position of mayor and lost the election. Kind of sounds like sore losers to me. In my opinion, these individuals are bent on causing chaos to remove Steve from office so that they and their supporters can advance their own agenda, rather than working together as Steve is promoted from the start. I also know that there was an attempt to take a vote during the last meeting to oust Steve immediately. Being that Steve was elected by the citizens of Whitehall, it is my opinion that these individuals would need to get petitions signed and coordinate a formal recall vote. The City Council does not speak for me in this particular situation. Should anyone want to speak to me regarding this letter, please feel free to contact me, and it's signed Dave Osborne. I have more. This is from William Scott Miller, City Council. I live at 1421 South Mears Avenue. Some may have seen an overview of my house on Fox 17 News. Mine is the green one with the tree through the roof and the crushed car in the driveway. I am writing today to thank Scott Hubler, Chief Squires, and the Whitehall Police and Fire Departments for a daily presence during our time of natural disaster. That group secured the scene and restricted access from the curious so that those of us impacted could start the process of cleaning up. Everyone was professional and courteous. My apologies for being a little grumpy those first few days. I would also like to publicly acknowledge and personally thank Mayor Steven Salter for being the only city council member that stopped by to talk to me, ask me how my family was, and to offer any assistance that we may need. When you are standing in the middle of the destruction and the mayor takes the time to stop, it really sends the message that he cares about this community. During the week that I spent at home clearing brush, it was not uncommon to see him out in the community several times a day. Thank you, sir. I am submitting this email as I don't know if I will be able to attend the next council meeting. Respectfully, William Scott Miller. Here's his address, etc. This is from Rusty McBride. I am new to the community and glad to refer to it as my adopted hometown. As a resident, several members of the community were there to create a warm, welcoming environment. Steve Salter was one of those persons. Steve was always free with advice, history lessons, and insight into the community. In addition to that role, he is always on the move in the community to pick up trash, sticks on the bike trail, sweeping the water park, and more. He is a great role model of service to the community that he loves. The assault on Steve is a terrible event that should not be discounted. The attacker, through Freedom of Information, has a long police record in Whitehall going back to 2004. The victim of the assault should not be judged by gender roles, rather for what they are, a victim of the assault. It is okay to disagree with the mayor, but is disrespectful to judge a victim as defined by the visiting police officers. I write this letter to show support for the mayor and the victim of the assault. Regards, Rusty McBride. I have two more. One's from someone else, one's mine. Mine will be less than 3 minutes. I grew up in Whitehall. This is from Debbie Williams. I grew up in Whitehall after living away from Michigan for most of my adult life. About 4 years ago, I made the decision to move back to Whitehall. I'm proud to be from the area, and I'm happy once again to be able to call Whitehall my home. I heard about the events that happened at Steve and Leslie's residence on May 30th. Then I heard about the council members who spoke against Steve on July 9th. While I respect your right to an opinion, I think you are way out of line to use this as a reason to speak out against Steve, our mayor, and I find it particularly awful that you would go so far as to suggest that he resign. You should all be ashamed of yourselves. Steve is a good person and a good mayor, and I support him. Please set aside whatever issues you have with Steve and stop attacking him personally. He doesn't deserve this kind of treatment. Instead, please work together for the benefit of the city, Whitehall, and its citizens. Thank you. Sincerely, Debbie Williams. And finally, I have my own. Members of the City Council and citizens of Whitehall, my name is Mark Vandeveld. I watched on July 9th as 3 City Council members spoke against our mayor and asked for his resignation. Having listened closely to the various comments, more than just once, but several times, I still struggled with the question, why? Why are you asking for his resignation? Steve was elected by a majority vote to a second term, and he's proven to be a strong, selfless, and energetic leader and a servant to the community. So why? Well, what are the facts? On May 30th, there was an incident at the Salter residence between Steve and the neighbor, Amy Josephson. The police were called, and a police report was made. Based on what I read in that report, it is clear to me that Amy was the instigator and the aggressor. She went to Steve's property, initiated verbal and abusive insulting language, and when Steve turned away, she struck Steve in the back. While I feel compassion for anybody struggling with what seems to be an addiction and perhaps some mental health issues, I also feel that once Amy initiated the aggression, Steve was within his rights to defend himself on his own property. What did the police and the county prosecutor decide to do? After arriving at the scene and investigating the complaint, the Whitehall Police Department arrested Amy, not Steve. They charged Amy with assault and battery, not Steve. And Amy spent the night in jail. Then, a few days later, at her arraignment, the county prosecutor didn't simply drop the charges, the assault charges, as Sandra Gibbs's letter said. What really happened was the county prosecutor agreed to a plea deal with Amy and her counsel. Amy was allowed to plead guilty to a lesser charge of disorderly person in exchange for dropping the assault and battery charge. In the end, Amy still pled guilty to a charge that was the result of her actions on the day of May 30th. Of course, council members, you could have and should have already known all of these facts well before your attacks on Steve at the July 9th council meeting. So what? I don't understand. So what I don't understand is, how can you members of this council demand Steve's resignation? Imagine if you were in a similar situation, and I invite anybody here to imagine this. You're at home on the weekend, minding your own business. Someone comes onto your property uninvited, picks a fight with you, you defend yourself, the other person is arrested, then you go to work on Monday, and certain people want your resignation? I think one or more of you have an axe to grind against Steve, and you thought this was your chance to run him off. It's not right. Mayor, I hope you don't resign as mayor, or on the council, or on one single committee that you're currently serving on. You are good for this community, and I want you here and out there on those committees looking out for us. Council, respectfully, given the facts in the police report combined with law enforcement's handling of the disturbance, I'd like to ask you all to completely stop your efforts to obtain Steve's resignation and return to more pressing and worthwhile Whitehall city business. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to
Sorry
speak?
to bother you. My name's Larry Lonstein Jr., Shoreline Media, Ocean.
Maybe we
Excuse
should
me.
let the meeting
Sir.
continue.
My name's Tom Nielsen. My wife Kathy and I have been residents of Whitehall for 40 years. We've known Stephen and Leslie for almost that long, as our girls grew up together. I'm here to support Steve. Everything I want to say has been said in spades very well by many people. But I want you to know that we voted for Steve and are very happy with the service he's given the city and the enthusiasm he's shown for the city. He's the only mayor since we moved here that keeps us informed daily about ongoing projects. That's a real positive thing. He continuously speaks of working together for the benefit of the city and making it a more attractive place to live and raise our families. He's passionate about promoting social activities that draw people from surrounding areas. We need his level of enthusiasm to help make Whitehall a destination and not just a gas and fast food stop. I believe that this current call for our mayor's resignation has little or nothing to do with his relationship with a difficult neighbor, but stems from pre-existing differences of opinion. I don't know when or why it began, but I think it's time to stop the petty infighting and move forward. Yes, we voted for Steve and would do so again. The residents of Whitehall elected all of you with the hope of expectation that you put us and our town first on your agenda. I think Steve does. Thank you.
Anyone else like to say something?
Good afternoon. I'm speaking not as a resident of Whitehall, but as a guest to you all this evening. And so sorry to break up the conversation this evening, but I would like to come just to introduce myself. My name is Kendra Robinson, and I speak loudly, so is it okay if I just turn this way? Is it okay?
Yes.
All right. I'm Kendra Robinson, and I'm running for judge in our county. I work as a public defender, have been so now almost 9.5 years. I am coming up on election, not the August, but November. I did run 2 years ago and was unsuccessful. But where I started out was family courts with the neglect and abuse kids, and unfortunately juveniles who are in delinquency. I transitioned to district court, and I'm now working as a public defender in our 14th Circuit Court every day with our most at risk when it comes to their freedom. I deal with only felony defendants. And I can tell you every single day I'm in the court, I've been under every single judge in our court, and there are inconsistencies that are far surpass anything you'd ever see on a News 8, News 13, or News 3. I am tired of it. I know if no one else speaks, nothing will ever change. I know that people who are not violent offenders should be offered an alternative in their sentence, but I absolutely know the law should be followed as it is. And when people, or especially judges, are interpreted the way they want it to, then it's time for somebody to speak up. I thank you all in this community. It is such a loving community. I love it when I come to Whitehall. I started this mentor group about 4 years ago called the Aspiring Law Ladies, where I mentor young ladies in high school who actually want to go to law school. And this year, Whitehall had the biggest crew at MCC of almost 22 students. So yeah, they showed up and showed out. One of those students actually returned this year to our community and actually is an intern at the Muskegon Public Defender's Office. Her name is Emily, and she is wonderful. But anyways, I would like to give you all a little information. I know you have business to attend to here. I'm not going to speak about anything this evening about what you guys have going on. I know it's pressing on your hearts, but Mayor, I would like to thank you for coming to my meet and greet at the 4th of July. You met my father, and he keeps talking about some conversations you had. My daughter was soaking wet from the splash pad, and you found something to dry her off, and I don't know, she was just happy. But so, this is a beautiful city, you have a beautiful park, beautiful residents. I hope you all can come together and figure this out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'll leave some in the back. Thank you.
Good evening, Kevin Goff, 1010 South Cove Circle. Fresh off Walk to Beat. I'm the director of Walk to Beat, but I really would like to acknowledge the 10-member executive committee that made Walk to Beat possible. And our 2 advisors, Mayor Salter and Mayor Lohman, and also our city managers who were very helpful. We had 108 volunteers this year, all Whitehall, Montague residents. And from what I hear, it was a very successful event. In a couple of weeks, I'll come back with a more comprehensive report, but well, in addition to the report, I'm also going to talk a little bit about Walk to Beat 2025 and if it will happen and how it might happen. And I do plan on having a meeting with area residents and groups and people involved in the cities to see what we can do to make this thing happen again in 2025. This will be my last year as the director, so again, more in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Anyone else?
John Hanson, 312 South Division. Good evening. Yeah, I just don't know what to say about all of this. I guess if you have such an issue with what's already been established, and then maybe you should be talking to the police department and changing something there, because that is, it's the police that did the ruling or did the arrest, and the ruling's been done. I just don't get what all the problem is here. I would like to see everybody just work together and let's move on. That's it. Thank you.
Is there any more public comment?
Hi, I'm Joe Brightwell, 119 West Obel, Whitehall, Michigan. Your husband was my first friend in Whitehall when I was, well, not much taller, but Steve, good to see you. Hey, I've never been to one of these meetings. I read something about the big building going on the corner, and people had all kinds of opinions on it, and I said, man, I need to make it to a council meeting. I never expected this. Steve's a good man. I've known him over 20 years. He's always been respectful. He's always done a great job. I hate to see you guys attack him like that. I was really shocked. I was like, whew, this is almost like one of the Maple Beach Yacht Club meetings or something. Everybody's got an opinion and nobody wants to agree on anything. But I'm hoping you guys can pull this together and make it work, because he is a really good guy. Thanks.
Any further public comment? Okay, then we'll move on to old business. I don't believe we have any old business.
I do not.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Yes. Make your comment.
Cheryl Lohman, wife of the mayor of Montague. Steve and Tom and I and Leslie have always been, in the last few years, part of the 4th of July parade, the Christmas parade, and every time I meet with Steve, I say, we are a member of the common unity, community, common unity. And I just ask all of you and all of us as the members of the White Lake community, Montague and Whitehall, to work together to bring common unity. Just please work together for common unity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
May I?
yes.
I would like to thank all of you guys for coming. Can you hear me? Sorry. I am thankful that you have come and shared your thoughts. I don't know that side of Mr. Salter, but as I mentioned before, I do not doubt your sincerity, and I appreciate you speaking up and talking about the situation. It was my intent to talk about the situation because it felt to me like it was being not talked about, and I was getting comments that somehow it's my fault, that I'm doing something wrong by not talking about it. So, thank you for your thoughts. I do not condone violence to respond to this situation. I don't know, I don't have the history, I don't, but I think there's help that's needed. I'll just say that. I don't want to condone the behavior. I'll just say that. However, I would like to withdraw my motion to, first of all, withdraw my motion to table which one do I have to do first? Because we've got two on the table. Or off the table, which is it?
No, you approved the motion to table, so I think this would be to withdraw the motion to, whatever your motion was, you would withdraw that motion.
Okay, so I withdraw my motion to censure Mr. Salter. I don't, as I say, I don't like the violence. I don't want to say that I approve that, but I would like it if this council could work together. I appreciate all of you coming to help us to get on that path. And next time we have a meeting, please come back. We don't have to have a major reset in order to have community participation. We need you guys. You showed up today to help us see where we need to be, and that's together. So please help us continue to do that, and with that, I withdraw my motion. Oh, Steve, do I need to do anything else? Hold on, there.
Do you have to have a vote?
Yes, that's what we're.
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about. So you can withdraw your motion, but I think somebody would need to second.
Second my withdrawal.
Yeah, sure. Second.
Thank you all for your help and patience.
Mayor,
Are we clear?
do we have to vote?
There would need to be a vote on it, but as there's been a motion on the floor to withdraw, there's the opportunity to comment on that motion.
It hasn't been called yet, so comments can be made.
Comment on that motion. I did prepare a statement for today's meeting, so I'd like to know where you want me to handle that. Is this appropriate, or should I wait till another time?
We're withdrawing the motion to censure.
I think this would be the time, maybe, for relates to this motion.
Okay. Well, and I apologize because I have spent some time on this, and so I appreciate your coming here and providing your views. I think it's important to address this sensitive and challenging situation. And I apologize I have to read, because if I don't, I'm gonna forget what my points were. But I want to first express my heartfelt compassion for everyone involved in what happened. I think it's deeply troubling that a long-standing personal dispute escalated to physical confrontation. And my thoughts are with all parties, and I'm hopeful that this does not happen again. I know based on the history, it is likely to happen again, but I just, as someone who has lived in Whitehall all my life, I find it very sad that we have these situations that the people have to deal with. I had decided to vote against the motion if it was going to go forward, and to be very honest, people who know me, you know, I've been on council with the mayor in the past, and we've had our differences. we've had our differences of opinions. But I have put those issues behind me, and I want to focus on serving our city effectively and collaboratively. Yeah, I think you get to a certain age where you just don't want to have more drama. So, while I find the whole incident regrettable, I think, like people have mentioned, the context and the details of the situation are crucial. I'm aware that the mayor was not charged with any crime, and what he did not constitute grounds for criminal charges. I have to admit, as much as I would hope that I would never hit anybody, I would probably feel concerned, fearful, or threatened if someone came onto my property uninvited and hit me, and I can't say for sure what I would do. I do believe in focusing on our primary role, which is to govern and serve the city of Whitehall effectively. We face numerous challenges as a small city, but we have a lot of opportunities. I'm really glad to see you all here. Often, we don't see people here, and we don't often get feedback on the direction that we're going, unless people don't like it. And so, keep in mind that as much even as you may be dismayed with some of the folks here, that we do show up for 2 meetings, the second Tuesday, and we show up for the 4th Tuesday, and we do that regularly. And so I think showing up, it takes time out of your life, and it takes time if you're gonna do the job right. I have told people that I would like to show what good government is like. Everybody's within probably a mile of City Hall. You know people, you see Steve, you see us. Some of us do work, by the way. I do work. I still work part-time, remotely in my house with dogs as my co-workers. So if you ever knocked on the door, I would know that you were there instantly. But I think showing you what good government looks like means finding ways to unify and to work through our differences. I think it's important, one of the important points that I want to mention is that I don't want to deny due process. We were all elected. I don't think it's up to me to take your vote away. Whether I like or dislike the mayor, whether I like or dislike anybody else on the council, I don't feel like it's my role to take that away. And I just want to say that I'm committed to fair process, stability, the overall well-being of our city, and I would ask us, everybody on council, to make a commitment to treat each other respectfully and civilly in our meetings and without. I think that's important to us. I think it's important that we need to show that we're elected leaders. We should be examples. And so I just want to reaffirm that. I will certainly do so myself. I think more than any time in my memory, this is needed at our community level, and I think I'd like to see us build our community up and make it strong, working together. But I really want to thank you for coming. And I didn't mean to be rude to you. It's just that normally we do allow people 3 minutes, and we don't allow people to read like 5 letters. So just know you've got a little special time there. So.
Is it all right if I talk for a second too? Go ahead. All right. And I don't have my thoughts prepared here, but from my standpoint, a lot of the problem from the very beginning was that we didn't know enough about this, about the situation. Now, I knew that the squabble with the neighbor had gone on for a long time, and it's kind of a funny, I mean, that's as much as I knew. The thing is, and I have always appreciated the amount of time that Steve spends out in the community. I used to see him quite often when I was walking out at the splash pad and so on, and that's a great thing. The one thing that I would say in my messages have kind of focused on this before. Steve, I think if you had brought this out earlier, instead of it being hidden, or whatever it's been, covered up, whatever it is, the lack of information has added a lot of the problem to the situation. Now that I've heard that the issue with this lady has gone on for 20 years or whatever, that she's been repeatedly arrested and so on, I tend to think that a lot of the problem is on the part of, I don't know if it's local police or the county courts or whatever. That's another way that this situation could have been avoided a long time ago, in my opinion, from what I've heard now. And you know, so it's kind of unfortunate that it's evolved to this point. And one thing that a few people have mentioned is that they elected Steve to do the job and so on, and that's true, but they elected us to do our job too, and I thought that we were doing our job the right way. My homework shouldn't be that I have to go and read police reports. I should have been able to get the story from the city manager, from the mayor. So anyway, that's kind of my thinking right now. I'm glad it's not going any further. I do appreciate everybody coming, and I guess that's what I have to say.
Any further comments?
Mayor, if I can?
Yes, please.
Since there were some pointed comments made just now, I am obligated to respect the law and the privacy of certain individuals. There was no reason that this incident involved any official city business, and we are, again, bound to follow the law and respect the privacy. All right, it's always up to the persons involved to reveal whatever they want. And to say there's a problem with the police department, I take offense to that. Police investigate and report to the county prosecutor. It is up to the prosecutor to make any determinations as to any fines, jail time, or any other activity. So the police department has always acted appropriately and professionally in this instance and all instances in the city.
That's what I don't know if it's the police or the courts or whatever. Somewhere, a lot of
said the problem might be with the police. It is.
Okay.
All right. Is anyone else?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I really didn't want to talk on this subject at all, but I was just going to let everybody find out what my vote was when it came up. But, in my opinion, this shouldn't have been brought out as it has been. The police handled the matter, and the one who was responsible for it was charged. If I was on a jury, I would listen to both sides and make a decision. We're not in that position. The people in the city of Whitehall know what happened, as is obvious here today. Now, if people want to remove Mayor Salter, that's why we have elections. And we are not here to do that as a city council. That's not part of our job. So that's really all I have to say about it. I probably would have disappointed some people by not voting to do that, but that's the way I feel about it. If I was on the jury, I'd make a decision. I'd listen to both sides, and the police did not charge them, and the prosecutor did not charge him, because there was nothing to be charged. And I agree with how the police handled it, and I'm happy with how that all turned out. And that's all I have to say about it.
So is there a way that we can alleviate Steve's torture in the future? I mean, really? Or is it going to happen again? Is there a way that we can, the prosecutor can can handle the situation differently, or county, some agency, I don't know.
Well, I don't know if Will wants to speak to it, but it's totally within the prosecutor's discretion as to what charges to file. The prosecutor is an elected position if the community is, correct?
Right.
Okay. You turned and looked at me, I'm like, oh.
No.
Is an elected position if the community does not like the way they are prosecuting cases, then the community has a right to vote them out and get somebody of a different disposition in. But we, the police, again, they report, they do the investigation, they turn it over, it almost sounds like the intro to Law and Order, but that's what happens. It's up to the prosecutor. He or she has sole discretion. And I do know that they speak to the victims quite often. There's a very active victim rights program going on right now. In fact, we got a letter, there was some gentleman who vandalized some city property. And I was kind of surprised because we actually got the victim's declaration statement, which we didn't really fill out. So again, it's up to the prosecutor. There's nothing we can do other than perhaps express our opinion, which may or may not be taken into consideration.
I guess the only thing I would add is that's on the prosecutorial side. There are civil options that the mayor could, if he wanted to, try to avail himself of, and those are independent of anything, again, that the city would do, related to neighbors or issues. So there can be civil things that are done, but they're not something that the city would be involved in at all.
All right. Would a restraining order solve the problem, or would that not do anything?
That's,
I don't think
that's
she's
not the
complying
city's
with
question.
anything.
Right.
Just for your information, I sought a restraining order. It was court-ordered mediation with the individuals. We had mediation. The mediator said these were the worst individuals they've ever dealt with, and there's no chance that mediation is going to help. So, I believe we have a motion on the table. It needs to be voted on.
Could we read it again so we know what the motion is?
The motion is to withdraw the motion for censure. So we'll withdraw that motion.
And a request to resign.
And the request to resign. That was part of the motion too, right?
Do we need a roll call?
No.
I don't believe so.
Those in favor of this removal of that motion, say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, motion is approved. I believe we can move on to new business. Designation of Michigan Municipal League voting delegates. Scott, would you like to?
Yep, this is an annual request from the Michigan Municipal League during their annual convention. They have a number of resolutions, legislative principles that get voted on, and they typically ask every one of their community members to designate a voting delegate and an alternate. At this point, I don't know if there's any council members that are interested in going and willing to serve as the voting delegate. It's a relatively easy process. So if there are no council members interested in going, then we would just pass on this.
Potentially could be interested, but maybe Scott would go.
Don't have the time, sorry.
Okay, well, potentially, but we have to vote on it.
Yeah, we would, if you're potentially thinking about it, we would potentially appoint you as the voting delegate.
Okay, potentially.
This would likely be the same person that's going to the Mackinac Island.
Yep, that's where the voting takes place.
Okay, so if we approve this appointment, then she, Councilwoman Hillebrand, the person going to Mackinac for the convention.
Correct.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind going, but I'd like to kind of go along with somebody and just pay me own way, but I like the MML meetings. I haven't been to one in a while.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so
Well, appointment of a council member as the delegate and an alternate doesn't necessarily limit, I think we only budgeted for one to go.
one and spouse, right?
We typically, the spousal expenses are pretty much negligible. So yes, we do encourage a spouse to go.
Well, if Debbie and I want to go, is that, can we split it? We'd probably do one car,
Huh?
right?
Drive with you for 4 hours?
Your microphone's still on.
Oh my.
We could do a budget amendment,
Okay.
because I don't know if the prices have actually come out yet. So we'll see if we can do both of you within the budget, or 3 or 4 of you. There were some restrictions placed on this. But yeah, if you two are considering, and nobody else here tonight is considering, then one of you can be the delegate, one can be the alternate. And that would take a motion from council. Yes, you can.
So when would we make this motion? Right now?
Yep.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we appoint Debbie Hillebrand and Tanya Kabala as Debbie as the delegate and Tanya as the alternate.
Second.
MML.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I think as a financial measure, we need to.
No, as far as the appointment of the delegate,
Okay,
there's
yeah,
no
so then,
finances
all
involved.
in favor of that, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion is approved. Next is the White Lake Community Library Street Closure Request.
I will move that we approve closing Slocum Street at the library's request as described. Do I need to say more?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this?
I went to it last year.
I
I
did?
think you were there too, weren't you,
Yes,
Steve?
yes, I
I
was.
thought it was kind of neat.
Yep.
So, all I really got to say about it, I mean, I support it, so.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. The next is Resolution 2425, Appointments Policy.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2425, Appointments Policy.
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. Is there any discussion?
I think we've had plenty of discussion. For many weeks.
And is this a roll call?
As a resolution.
Okay.
Brown,
Yes.
Hillebrand,
Yes.
Sickinga,
Yes.
Beamer,
Yes.
Kabala,
Yes.
Salter.
In the budget negotiations in June, this council voted to remove funding for the mayor to be a member of Rotary. The Rotary Club's four-way test is a 24-word set of questions that can be used as moral compass for making decisions in both personal and professional settings. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? The answer is no to every one of these questions in regards to this resolution. Therefore, I am voting no. Okay. Next up is public comment.
So tonight's been pretty interesting, learned a lot of things. Debbie, thanks for rethinking your thoughts and whatnot. I asked you a question though, before you got here, or before you spoke on the 9th, did you review your notes? Did you review your notes? Did you reread it and kind of practice, or at least brief through it?
Yeah. What?
Why wouldn't you have looked into the facts?
I.
And before we brought up all of this is 2 weeks I'm not at the band shell enjoying the community. Because of something that turns out to be law. It's personal. Why? Well, you asked for a guy's resignation from something he's prideful of. We all spoke on that. Why? What do you, I mean, that's a lot. Do you agree? That's a lot to bring forward.
I appreciate your comments, thank you.
Yeah, okay, all right, it was kind of stunning. I mean, Tom mentioned, Mr. Seymour mentioned that he didn't know of the facts. But you were supportive. Well, the police found him not guilty.
The whole thing, my feeling on that is that the whole thing could have been a lot easier, could have been resolved weeks ago if it had been out in the open and.
Between you guys, yeah, within a community, within your offices or whatever, however you guys live here.
And that
maybe you should have asked them, Steve, what's this about?
And that would have protected everybody's privacy better than certainly what this was.
Scott, did you know the facts of his incidents, his 20 years of verbal abuse?
I've heard about it, yeah.
You heard, did you investigate anything before you decided to put this man's pride on the line?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, good, I'm glad.
I just don't condone violence, period.
I can't agree with you more, I think hitting someone is awful. But I think 20 years of verbal and...
No excuse.
You stand, thank you, I agree.
Any further public comment?
John Hanson, 312 South Division. So I paid my taxes this year, and I was told, okay, I'll give you a whole story. I paid the taxes, and they lost my check. And they asked me to write another check, which I did, and then, but I had to stop payment on the other check, which was cost me $33. And the office said that that would be brought up at the meeting tonight for my reimbursement of the $33. So I'm just bringing it out in public. It wasn't my fault. I didn't lose the check, but I had to stop the payment before I could issue another check. So. Yeah, I'd appreciate a refund. Thank you.
Your support. I want to say to this council, let's work together for the interest of this community. We're adjourned.